Welcome to Business Talk with me, Michael Avery, and time to talk about the algorithm, which seems to be making increasingly important decisions in all of our lives. And it has been ever since the advent of ChatGPT burst onto the scene. And we've seen the rise of large language models and now the evolution into Claude code, vibe coding, agentic AI. It really is quite staggering to see that almost every single industry and profession has been touched in some way by artificial intelligence, and increasingly as well, the auditing and assurance profession. So we're asking the question today, in a world where these technologies are really good at high compute anomaly detection and things like that, what is the role of human judgment still in a profession that is likely to be profoundly impacted by this technology? And it's a great pleasure to have Marie-Laure Delarue, who is the global vice chair of assurance, I should say, at EY, who's in South Africa for a visit to talk about a topic that I think is very close to your heart and a real tension as you lead 100,000 people around the world. Marie-Laure, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here visiting your wonderful country. Yes, it's a really a very important topic. And first thing is, it's an important topic for our clients, and so we have to adjust to what our clients are doing. And the more our clients are going to adopt AI, Gen AI, agentic AI, the more we are going to adjust and change the way we audit them, because for sure, those are very clear opportunities. There are very clear opportunities, but there are also very new risks. And in our profession, we need really to anchor our audit approach on the new risks. An audit is not checking everything; it's risk-based.
Yeah.
And the adoption of those new technologies are mean that we have new risk to take into account. But in our own profession, how we deliver audits and we give assurance to our clients, it will have profound impact. I am a very positive person, and I think that I see this mainly as a very positive evolution. Let me explain to you why. We are doing a lot of tasks in the audit that are quite repetitive,
Yeah.
sometimes mundane. And we are asking our young people, very bright people, graduates for many of them, to perform those tasks, to get trained, okay, and to understand how to deliver an audit. We see the first consequence of AI, agentic AI in particular, to really allow our people not to necessarily perform those tasks, but review
Right.
the outcome of what agents will be doing, probably even better than our human people, because human can be prone to error. If you train an agent well, if you certify this agent, and you have to certify an agent, it's likely that they're going to be able to perform those tasks, and that our young people will have to review, challenge, have more client conversations rather than staying in front of a computer. So we see this very positively. You have to be cautious, though, because audit is a highly regulated profession, rightfully, because our job is to provide confidence in capital markets. And so we can't make mistakes. Okay, so we have to equip our people with the best technology. We have to certify our technology. We have to make sure it's fully reliable. And that's why it takes a lot of effort to make those technologies fully reliable.
Yeah.
And also to train our people to keep the human in the loop. So at EY, we are absolutely convinced that while technology can really bring you a lot of value, you have to keep professional skepticism. You have to be able to challenge the outcome, to review the outcome, and you cannot consider that the agent is going to do your job fully. You have to retain the professional judgment. One of the questions I very often have is if your young people are not going to perform tasks,
How do they
well,
acquire the skills? So that's what I was going to ask. And I see it just not only in the audit profession. This happens in the legal profession. Often article clerks come in and they do a lot of the so-called grunt work and go and look at case law. And that's how you acquire that kind of that soft knowledge that gives you the judgment over time and experience. So how do we then close that gap?
I think it's going to accelerate the learning and the evolution, the professional upbringing, if you like, of our professionals. Because you're right, it's important to do a cash reconciliation, for example, to understand what a cash reconciliation is.
Mm.
But I'm not sure it's important to do thousands of them.
Yeah.
Okay, I
Yeah.
do believe that there are techniques, especially simulation techniques, which are already used in some professions, that can equip you with the same knowledge, with the same understanding of basic mechanism without necessarily having to repeat them, 1 year long, for example. So
Mm.
while we have to find ways for our people to understand the basics, it's not necessarily the same way. And I do believe that one of the advantage is that you're going to be able, as a junior, to do more client interactions, for example. Our junior, they are they're smart people. Okay, they
And
come from the
ambitious.
best universities. And so I do believe that with agentic AI and with those emerging technologies, you will be able to accelerate, okay, their learning curve, and you will be able to also train them in with other skills, interviewing a client, challenging a business model, understanding how a client is going to evolve, focusing on going concern and the ability of technologies to disrupt your client's business. It's something that I think we're going to focus even more. And our junior people are going to be brilliant at doing this while spending less time to be trained on the basics.
Yeah, but and we see it. I think Merriam-Webster's word of the year last year was AI slop, for example. But it just speaks to the volume that AI, just at a general retail level, is producing ever greater volume of content. Some of it good, some of it not so good. And so, almost if data becomes commodified in a sense, the real value in a professional setting becomes that judgment. I mean, if everyone's replying with a 100-page memo to another 100-page memo because they can now, it really becomes, well, how do you cut through the noise and how do you apply that judgment? Is that how you see the division of labor in a world where you've got these machines that are really good at analyzing patterns and detecting anomalies, and then you've got the human layer coming in and applying that judgment?
Yes, absolutely. I think that focusing the human judgment on what matters, outliers, as you said, or the consequence of technology on the transformation of our client is incredibly important. I'm asked very often, how much of your time is going to be um, focused on routine tasks, and how much of your time is going to be focused on the consequence of technology for your client's business? And the answer is we're going to focus probably 80% of our time on those new risks, because once again, an audit is risk-based. And so it's very difficult to understand the consequences because there is no precedent. AI, Gen AI, quantum, in the foreseeable future, they are going to really trigger a lot of business disruption, transformation opportunities. And our role as auditors is to assure, okay, that our clients are doing the right thing, that everything they disclose on their business is reliable, given this new and very, very moving environment. It's not to focus, on the routine task and the processes of the past. It's really to focus on what is going to change. And this is why I'm very, very optimistic on the fact that our junior people, while still learning on the basics, will have, I think, a very, very interesting task and will bring a lot of value by adjusting to this new environment.
I mean, you just look at the web model, for example, and how travel and tourism businesses have seen this rise of AI impact their businesses, because now no longer you're going through Google, which has SEO that'll direct you to your company website. You're going to a ChatGPT and saying, give me a 2-week itinerary. I'm going to Paris in June. What do you recommend? And so now you've got to look at that and say, well, these are potentially existential risks for a business model, but here's the opportunity. And I think that really is exciting. When it comes to ethics and AI, and we talk about this a lot in South Africa, in banking in particular, where if it's going to be used to credit score individuals, for example, and you deny access to a home loan in a country with our history where housing is so critically important and emotive, you've got to be able to explain that. Some of these things are a bit like a black box. How do you explain their decisioning, even if it's good? How do you think about ethics and AI in the auditing profession?
The first thing is what is really important is responsible AI. So at EY, we have our 9 responsible AI principles. One of them is really to make sure that you identify bias. It's really important to be aware of biases, but also sometimes you have the opposite. Humans have developed bias for many reasons. One of the reasons is to be quicker in your decision making. There is science that explain this. And sometimes you can exactly identify how bias plays a role in the decision, perhaps even better with artificial intelligence that you can really do with humans. It's really interesting. I was working with a university on using AI in hiring processes. And when you do identify how AI works with hiring processes, you identify as well that some natural biases that human people have in hiring, okay, are not observable in how AI works in hiring because
Fascinating.
they have been trained a certain way. And when you look at the efficiency and the quality of the hiring in the end, you can absolutely identify that the extent to which AI has less bias, okay, can explain some higher efficiency in the hiring outcomes. So I was quite fascinated by this study. So yes, AI will have bias, can have bias, but I do believe that you can probably identify this and work on it. Okay, probably a little bit more. It's probably a bit easier than with human people, where you can educate humans on their own bias, and I think we all can be educated on our biases, but it's probably a little bit more difficult
Yeah.
to work against them.
Absolutely. Great example. And I must say, when we think about this, it boils down a lot to trust, doesn't it? And I think the audit profession, providing assurance, as you said, to capital markets, it does boil down to trust. So, how are you as an industry and as a globally leading organization such as EY thinking about how you foster trust in a world that is going to increasingly be leaning into these technologies and utilizing them in your systems and processes?
So that's an excellent question. Beyond equipping our auditors with the best technology, AI, agentic AI, that has been certified, and I insist on this, we are also developing new assurance products around AI. This is really the request of our clients. Our clients tell us, can you certify an algorithm? Can you certify that it's free of bias? Can you make sure that my data, the data I use to train my model, is accurate? Can you make sure that my ecosystem, working on AI, Gen AI, is reliable, and that the controls, the governance I have put in place are protecting my company against some of the unintended consequences of AI and Gen AI. So those are the new assurance products that we are developing. It's not easy because you don't always have international auditing standards around this new kind of assurance, but it's really important, and it really addresses a need for more trust, trusted assurance provided by independent providers. Because I really believe that, the good old, recipe always works. Okay, to assure anything, you have to be skilled and you have to be independent. You have to be really, really the person who has the skills, the methodology, the best people, the best training, but you also have to be totally, totally independent and free to deliver the conclusion that you think is the right conclusion from a professional standpoint. So we use our ability to develop skills, sometimes build skills, and we use the power of being totally independent.
And what does that mean for you as a leader, building that trust not just with your external stakeholders, but also with your internal stakeholders, your teams, your staff, many of whom might be looking at this thinking, oh, AI is going to come and maybe replace my function or take my job. And what happens to me in the future? Everything is changing under my feet. It feels uncertain. What does that bring forward for you as a leader to help your teams transition and navigate their way through this terrain?
So thank you for the question, because that's the very reason I'm here in South Africa. This is to really, really educate, train our people, give them confidence that they're going to be even better auditors, that they're going to provide assurance to stakeholders who need us, and that while really being upskilled and trained, they are going to be able to address what is at stake nowadays and in the future. So we have this huge modernization program of the audit at EY, which is called Future of Audit Now, which I think is speaks for itself. Okay,
Yeah.
it's great to build the future, but the future is really now, and so we need to really make sure that we are equipping our professionals from staff to partner, not only with the right technology, but also with the confidence that we are doing the right thing, that we are equipping them to really continue to grow, to develop themselves. And that all those discussions about, I'm going to be replaced by AI, if you don't use AI, for sure you're going to be replaced by AI. But if you are properly trained, and in our profession, we have this, long-standing tradition to be very good at training people. Okay, people come to EY once they graduate from university because they want to be trained. They want to be trained on something they can't be trained on in university, which is business. Okay, how do you run a business? How do you grow your business? How do you make your business secure? It's not going to change, because business is going to be more and more supported by technology. And so by equipping our people with the best technology, we also train them to audit companies that are going to be profoundly transformed by technology. So it's always the same. You're always afraid of things you don't know. If you have the ability to understand, to be trained, to have excellence in the way you use those techniques, tools, you're not going to be afraid anymore. You're going to understand how you can develop yourself and how you can still bring value to your clients and to society by using those tools. So this is exactly what we're doing. We're seeing a lot of good signs that our professionals are increasingly more confident on how they will be able to thrive using AI. And honestly, we are very fortunate at EY because we have the ability, thanks to our size and our brand, to partner with the best technology companies. We have a partnership with Microsoft, for example, and we are working very intensively with Microsoft, not only to adopt their product, but also to make sure that the product are fit for our purpose. And it's I think, a great chance when you're a professional at EY to have access to the best products, the best technology, the best training, the best certification.
Yeah.
Once again, you use the product, you are really confident this product is going to give you the best outcome, but you also have a training on how not to over-rely on what the product gives you. You know what you have to do with the product and the outcome of what AI produces. You know you should never take it 100% for granted. You have to use your professional judgment, your skepticism, your experience, your curiosity to challenge and question, what the AI product gives you. And I think that if you explain this well, if you train people using examples, use cases, you're going to give confidence to your people, and they're going to be well equipped to do the job.
But I'm already seeing that high agency professionals who are using AI outperforming those who are not using it. Understanding that it has limitations, it's prone sometimes to sycophancy and telling you what you want to hear, and then you question it and says, "Oh, sorry, I'm actually wrong. You're right." And but you start to become familiar with the technology, and you learn where it is proficient, how to steer it properly, and if you're working in certified environments that's got context into your organization or specific data, it really helps you deliver at a speed and a scale and a pace that I think is a fundamental step change to any other technology that we've seen. So I know there's a lot of people who turn around and say, oh, AI is hype, it's Gartner's hype cycle. This is foundationally transformative technology here. I want to move on to another interesting conversation that we're grappling with in South Africa, and I think around the world. And it's been highlighted by what's happened in the Middle East, and everyone's talking about energy security all of a sudden, and not necessarily how quickly you're going to decarbonize, but how quickly you can get hands on good old-fashioned molecules of Brent or WTI. So there's this tension in environmental social governance circles. How do you balance that with leadership and credibility, and where do you see the ESG conversation going?
I must tell you, of course, I can't be happy with what is happening right now. But I always believe that you have to use um, anything that's happening to learn. And so where I'm happy is I heard a lot about ESG being about doing the good for the planet, being ethically the right thing to do, which it is. What I see now is that sustainability becomes more and more a business imperative because it makes you more sustainable. It makes you more resilient. It aligns with the agenda of a lot of governments to be less dependent on other countries, to have sovereignty at the heart of your business model. So it's a big shift. It's regrettable that it comes, at the back of those dramatic events, but it's a wake-up call on the fact that this frictionless, borderless world has been an exception in history and might not be the case for the years to come. And you have to build resilience in your supply chain. You have to make sure that while you streamline your processes, you de-risk your processes. And so we see a big shift in corporates. And we see geopolitics really being not only something for newspapers, but something that is really discussed in boardrooms to make sure that you can act upon it. And so the best way to act upon it is to be more agile, more versatile, to have diversification of your supply chain, of where you supply energy. And sometimes the solution is to bring the energy sources closer to home, is to bring energy closer to where you operate, where you produce, where you distribute. And it is something that has not been the case over the past because, once again, of those borderless, supply chains. But it's not always been the case. And many companies understand that the way to be performing is to have sustainable performance and to change the elements of the equation.
Yeah, a lot of those old assumptions were shattered recently, unfortunately, in very tragic and terrible events. But, it does now open one's eyes to the need to be much more diversified in terms of securing energy sources. But naturally, across your supply chain, I think often that's where there's a difference between ESG is kind of greenwashing and marketing, but ESG is understanding this is about your long-term business survival and sustainability. To your point, do you think the market is correctly pricing this now, and our boards having this conversation in the right kind of way, beyond just maybe filling a sustainability report card in?
Yes, the market is always pricing all the available information it has, and I think this will probably lead to some repricings. Let me just take the lending business. Okay, it's very clear that banks, when they look at the viability, financial viability of businesses, they are taking more and more into account transition plans, transition in energy, but also the dependency to nature, scarce resources. And we it's very clear to illustrate with water or
Yeah.
electricity grid. If your business is highly dependent on some natural resources that you can't source a secure way because you're too dependent on a certain country or on a certain supplier, or if you need water and you are scarce in water, or if you need electricity grid. Okay, we see this with data centers. There are places in the planet where you can't operate a data center because the grid is saturated. So all those elements that are really impacting your business, your viability, is something that banks, when they lend money, take more and more into account. So is it priced? It is certainly priced in the way you access capital, in the spread you have to pay to your lenders, sometimes to the market, okay, to get funding and capital. And I think this is something that is going to be probably even more obvious when the markets and the banks and lenders are going to draw the consequences of this current crisis.
It's fascinating to see, even in South Africa, how the banks are taking exactly that more granular approach to say, and it's also a pragmatic approach in hard to abate sectors like cement or steel, which don't have any readily available solutions just yet, to say, well, we want to get you from A to B in 10, 15, 20 years' time. What is the plan? What is the glide path? We want to interrogate that. What assumptions did you make? Where are we investing in R&D to see if we can help you get there? And then let's see if we can go to the capital markets and raise a bond and provide the capital to get you there as well. So very interesting conversations that we're having. Marie-Laure, I just want to end off with a last kind of big picture question, if I can. I mean, you lead over 100,000 people globally. If we were to sit here in 5 years' time, what would give you the confidence to say, right, we successfully made that transition to this new era of AI through our organization, and we are now delivering value both internally and externally?
I think the ultimate judge is the growth. Okay, how can we continue to grow in a rapidly evolving market? How do we use the talent of our people and our access to technology to grow and to continue to serve our clients and the capital markets? And you've not asked me directly this. We hear a lot of things on the impact of AI on employment, on the number of employees. Will we still hire and develop people? Our business is fundamentally a people business. Technology might, support and might be even more used. It's going to be a people business. And so my KPI is really the revenue per head. Okay, if you can equip your people so that they're more creative, they bring more value to your clients and to capital markets, you're going to measure the progress you do by really using this as a right KPI. My objective is not to cut, the number of people we employ. You were mentioning 100,000 people. I wish we will have, even more in the future. But my view is that if you really develop your people the right way, you're going to give them ability to augment their capabilities, their capacities. And because the world is not short of challenges and new risks, and because our clients are really in demand of us assuring, their business while they're transitioning, I really believe that we are going to measure our success by the continued growth that we will be able to generate, equipping our people with the best tools. And we're going to measure our internal success by the satisfaction of our people. Okay, we constantly poll our people, sometimes too much, on their satisfaction working at EY, how they belong, how they learn, how exceptional is their experience, and this will continue to be our how we measure the success we have.
Marie-Laure Delarue, thank you very much. It's been an inspiring conversation, obviously at a time when everyone is concerned about is AI going to come in and replace and displace? But I think what you've outlined is a vision where with AI tools, companies can grow at an even faster rate and therefore increase their ability to employ graduates who are ambitious, talented, smart, and skilled, and wanting to solve the many challenges of the future. I think that is the bottom line. Great having you here on Business Talk. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure as well.